Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue. Hello, everybody. I wish to welcome you all to today's webinar. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. You are absolutely in the right place if you're here to deepen your knowledge and understanding of how organic waste to energy can power real change towards our climate goals. My name is Andréane. I am a project officer with the Green Municipal Fund, a capacity development team. Today, I'm also joined by two very interesting and experienced voices in the sector, whom I will introduce in a short moment, as well as our GMF outreach team, who will be giving a short presentation and answer some of your questions in the chat. A few housekeeping items for you to hopefully enrich your experience during this session. Today's event will be taking place in English with French interpretation. To join the French interpretation, I invite you to click the icon at the bottom of your screen, the icon of a globe, and select the French, sorry, the French selection. Aujourd'hui, notre présentation sera en anglais. Et si vous souhaitez suivre en français,
Today, we will have the presentations in English. If you do want it to hear in French, you can select the French option at the bottom of your screen for the French interpretation.
Suivre en français, désolé. We also have two separate slide decks in French and in English. To view the French presentation, simply select the option at the top of your screen. Feel free to toggle between the two. As we move through our presentation today, I ask that you write your questions in the Q&A box as they come up. We will do our best to address the clarification type questions as we move forward, but any questions pertaining to the content, we will address during the Q&A at the end of the session. You're welcome to ask your questions in French or in English in the language of your choice. I would also like to take a moment to reflect and acknowledge that the lands upon which I play, work, and live have served and continue to serve as traditional lands for many peoples over time. I am joining today from the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, which is also the land upon which FCM's offices are located, and we deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. Wherever you're joining us from, I invite you to join me in paying our respects to the original stewards of this land and committing ourselves to thoughts and actions that will lead to meaningful reconciliation. We encourage you to add where you are joining us from in the chat as we begin the webinar. Hopefully this is not your first time joining a GMF webinar, but in case it is, this webinar is hosted by the Green Municipal Fund, GMF, and it is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities' biggest program, now a program of $2.4 billion funded by the Government of Canada. Our unique mix of funding, resources, and training gives municipalities the tools they need to build resiliency and capacity. Our main initiatives make way for the sharing of lessons learned, resources, and the spotlighting of new environmental solutions to better the lives of Canadians. What we have ahead for you today, as expected, the majority of the session will focus on organic waste to energy and anaerobic digestion as scalable solutions, and the levels of complexities involved for municipalities to achieve their sustainability goals. Following this will be a word from our outreach team on available funding opportunities for your initiatives. That will be followed by a Q&A segment. You'll be able to submit your questions, and we will end with closing remarks. The smiling faces you see up on your screen are our wonderful speakers for today who will be co-delivering the presentation. So we have Dave Ellis, President of Azura Associates. Dave has more than 30 years experience helping owners and operators succeed in the biogas industry. We also have Trisha Aldovino, a process analyst who leads all educational projects under the Azura Associates umbrella. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Dave and Trisha. Thank you both for being with us and speaking to this topic. We're in good hands, so you're free to take over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrienne, for introducing us. So like we said, it's going to be quite interactive. And I'm going to ask you all to join us on Slido. Sorry about that. Move forward one go. Oh,
our slide control seems to have, there we go.
sorry about that. I don't know. Is our Slido working here?
Yeah. You should see a QR code up on your screen here in presentation mode. Let's see here. Do that. All right. Well, I don't know. It looks like Slido's giving us some attitude at this point. So there's not the QR code on the screen, the numeric code.
I can put the numeric code in the chat.
Yeah. It's the...
Okay. I think we will just move forward. If our Slido ends up working, please let us we'll see in the future. The Slido questions will come up, and if our Slido is not working, please put in the chat. I see there's people from Toronto, there's people from Quebec, and so on. So
Excellent.
we're just gonna get started, even if technology we were checking and things were not working.
Hi, Tricia. Sorry about that. So we're having issues with the Slido. I would suggest we move forward, and I'll get that up and running for you for the next ones.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Start over. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started. Biogas has been produced by microbes through anaerobic digestion for millions of years. It happens in the stomachs of cows, which is why they produce a lot of methane, and in the bottoms of swamps where there's no oxygen and dead plants are degrading. This is a group of people on top of a frozen swamp, and they're cracking that ice and lighting the biogas on fire. So humans want to capture energy. Oh, are we doing okay? One advance. Okay. So when human civilization was smaller, we would use our waste from farming, such as manure and waste crop foods, and even our household waste, and we would apply it back to land as fertilizer. And that would be fine because so the waste would go into our waterways. Oh.
Or
We are not advancing. Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay, so let me start over. When human civilization was smaller, we would use our waste, aka our manure, our residual crops, and put it back onto land as fertilizer. And some of that waste would trickle into our waterways, but it was fine at that time because we didn't produce enough waste to really overwhelm the environment. But as civilization grew, we had to feed more people and we had to focus on commercial food production. And we kept doing the same thing we've been doing for centuries, which is put our waste back onto land. And eventually we learned that that was no longer good anymore because we produced so much food and so much waste that it overwhelmed the environment. And so as we tried to feed everybody, we had to learn to intensify our natural crop growth process to be able to farm and feed everyone. But at the same time, we also had to focus on intensifying the natural biodegradation of waste so that we can process all of the waste that we are now producing. So anaerobic digestion is one way we could balance food production and waste processing while also still being able to get the fertilizer to return back to land. So with anaerobic digestion, we can apply our waste back to land in a safer way. It can reduce our emissions and still grow more food. Anaerobic digestion's main purpose is waste treatment. It's to make waste safe. And we do that by biodegrading it, which reduces pathogens and odor. And the way we do that is that the microbes breaking down, biodegrading that waste, they also exhale biogas. And that biogas is mostly methane, and that methane we can capture for energy. And so now you're thinking, wait, our waste can produce energy? This is true, but I'm going to be very clear. Anaerobic digestion is, it won't power the entire country, even if everybody adopted it, but it's very important in terms of waste management and sustainable agriculture and renewable energy. So anaerobic digestion could be part of a holistic climate action plan, from waste reduction to renewable energy and emissions reduction, as well as sustainable agriculture. And the way we can do that is by tackling two big problems, one with the landfill and one with our fossil dependence. So with anaerobic digestion, we can divert the organic waste going to landfill into an AD facility, which means that we reduce the emissions coming from the landfill itself. And we can also extend the capacity and the lifetime of that landfill, since that organic waste is going somewhere else now. And because the organic waste is going somewhere else, that we can actually return the nutrients to land instead of locking it up into a landfill where we can't reapply it. The methane that's produced, we can use that for energy, as well as to displace some of the transportation fuels if you so choose to go that way. The other thing with fossil dependence is that some fertilizers are mined, right? And so with the natural fertilizer we're producing with anaerobic digestion, we can reduce our dependence on mined fertilizer. Now, tackling both of these problems increases Canada's overall resilience. So, it's not on Slido, but I'd like everybody to put in the chat, what are the top 3 most critical environmental issues that's impacting your region today? Is it your GHG emissions from landfill, or maybe your wastewater treatment plant, from transportation? Is your landfill filling up really quickly? Is that very soon? Yeah, would love to hear what is the top issues that you guys are really experiencing. So I know, so Dave and I are currently in Waterloo.
We are.
And our neighbors over there in the GTA, I know that I think their landfill is filling up in the next 10 years. So I would assume, if somebody's from Toronto, let us know if we're assuming correctly, that the landfill capacity is one of those top 3 critical problems to solve for their region.
Exactly. With the landfills filling up here, even in Ontario, we're still trucking quite a bit of material into Michigan, into the US. And boy, that could sure change in a hurry, just what's happening with landfill space.
Okay, so if you click on the link there, I see the GMF team has been putting the Slido link in there. Please answer the polls if you're able to. It will be up for the whole time, and we'd love to really learn about it. But we're going to get into how anaerobic digestion works, starting with what goes in and what comes out. So digesters are systems that take in all kinds of organic waste, and we call them feedstocks. That organic waste goes into a digester tank where the microbes live, and then they eat that organic waste to produce biogas. And whatever they don't turn into biogas, they turn into digestate, which is our fertilizer. Now, organic waste is a broad term, so let's look at what specific types of waste can go in.
I unshared because they're just doing
And so I've categorized our feedstocks here in terms of complexity, going from low, medium to high complexity. So our low complexity or simple waste that can go into the digester are biosolids, manure, and agricultural waste. This is really where anaerobic digestion started. So there's lots of experience, lots of help out there that can help you get started. In terms of our more complicated waste, we have industrial food waste and retail food waste. So this is coming from your food production, from your grocery stores. And the reason why it could be more complicated is because of biochemistry. So in total, our feedstock complexity gets complicated, 1, because of biochemistry, and 2, because of contamination. So you see here, I have our high complexity waste. The SSOs, which is also our green bin waste, as well as our OFMSW. So our when we're trying to pick out the apples from our mixed black bag waste, these are examples of waste that are complex because of its contamination. And then chemical and pharmaceutical waste would be like complicated biochemistry. And now it's important to tackle our complex waste because that's where we're going to make a big difference in terms of sustainability. And they also tend to have higher fuel value than our low complexity waste. Okay, so now we're going to go through the different stages of anaerobic digestion in practice, starting with feedstock receiving. So how does your feedstock actually get to your facility? Typically, it's just trucking, or maybe you're able to pipe it somehow. Then how do you store it? Usually it's just a tank, very simple. Next is feedstock pre-processing. So this is how do we prepare the waste for better digestion? Then we can go into the anaerobic digester where the microbes live. They'll convert that organic waste into biogas. And before we can use that biogas, most of the time people clean it. And for the digestate, same thing. Sometimes people have to clean it. A couple of these stages have some byproducts that might need to be treated or disposed of depending on your situation. So moving out of the abstract and more into like what equipment are we actually using? If you have solid waste, like your green bin waste, most of the time people put it into a receiving pit. So I have a video here of a receiving pit. It has floating apples and oranges. You see there's a little bit of liquids, and it's added there so that you can pump that waste into the next stage. And there's a tip here that you can put your receiving pits inside an odor-controlled and air-controlled building so that the odors don't waft out into the community. Now, if you have mostly liquid wastes, like let's say your fogs or just like oils or expired pop, they can go into a liquid receiving tank. So in terms of feedstock pre-processing, not everybody needs to do this, but I'm going to show you the 3 steps that people typically do. So first step is making a smoothie. So I have this picture and this GIF here of a waste pumpkins, probably from after Thanksgiving or Halloween. It's coming up, right? So they're in plastic bags. So the first step is to break open that packaging and then make a smoothie out of that pumpkin. And so now you're going to ask, okay, so what do I do about that plastic bags? Well, there's a grit and contamination removal system that removes plastic bags, any rocks. You know, sometimes I heard somebody put a fork in their green bin, so that's the step where it would have to come out. After that, some people go through a fermentation stage to make this fermentation stage helps the microbes make the biogas faster. In terms of the tank itself, it's not really a complicated system. It's usually a tank with a heater and a mixer, and it's not really about the best digester. It's about matching the complexity of your waste to the technology that you have. So if you have very complicated waste, you might have a harder time if you just have a simple system. Okay. In terms of the biogas itself, most people, like I said, will clean it. They'll clean the H2S, hydrogen sulfide. And that's because hydrogen sulfide is corrosive, it can be odorous, and it can be deadly. So the top picture here is a net. And on that net, you see the little fingers. Those are microbes that are growing on the net and eating the H2S off of the gas. And then in terms of odor, I have the picture below. That's a biofilter. So bugs live on the wood chips there and eat the odorous compounds out of the gas. So in terms of use, some people can just flare it. But if you really want to use the energy itself, you can purify your biogas through an RNG upgrader to make methane, which is equivalent to your natural gas. Or if you don't want to do a purification, you can go to a CHP, combined heat and power unit, for electricity and heat. So I'll go into a little bit more detail. If you got raw biogas, you don't want to clean it. Most people flare it. If you put it through a CHP, it's still good because you can use the energy and the heat. However, it reduces the efficiency of your CHP. So if you're going to buy a CHP, most people put in a little bit of H2S removal so that their CHP can be more efficient. And so lots of wastewater treatment plants have a cogen on their digester for electricity to power their blower, for example. The next level of processing would be RNG. So this is your purification to methane. And you purify it up to the point where your natural gas pipeline provider could be like, yes, you can mix your gas with my gas, and now we have renewable natural gas. So that's something that City of Toronto does. In terms of our CNG, so we're taking that gas and putting it into a cylinder so that we can use it for regional transportation, so like buses and so on. The city of Hamilton is an example of a place that does that. And then we have the next stage, the most processed version is taking that gas and turning it into a liquid so that we can really reduce the amount of volume while still keeping the same energy. So this is usually used for international travel, shipping, long haul trucks. And so there was a project that was announced from Quebec that is proposing to go to our LNG. So you can see there's different options and depending on how much you process. So I've just gave you a high level understanding of what biogas use cases there are. If you already know or have an interest in certain ones, please put in the chat or in the Slido.
Hi, Trisha. I'm just going to interrupt. They should see a third screen at the top, and the slider should be working for them if they want to toggle over to this screen.
Okay.
And I see some answers coming in.
All right. So the Slido will be up the whole time, so please feel free to toggle back to Slido and then back to here when you're like really thinking about it. I just have to move forward since we're slightly. Okay, so in terms of your digest state has a bunch of nutrients in it, and the ideal place for your digestate to go is back to agriculture. And you can put the whole digestate onto agriculture, no problem. But sometimes people want to separate it, process it. And the way we process it is usually separating the liquids from the chunks, because sometimes the digestate still has chunks. The liquid can go into a wastewater treatment plant for sewer discharge, but there are other options for both solid and liquid. And our ideal options are ways for it to go back to land through agriculture, maybe free for the community for their backyard, or into compost even, so that digestate can go to compost. We prefer not to take it to the landfill because, again, that's like throwing out fertilizer. So if we choose, I hope that we can resolve the slides thing. I will continue. So if we choose to use digestate as fertilizer, we can't apply fertilizer all year because we have winter. So we'll need to choose a storage option. And there's different price ranges. Mostly it changes based on how gas tight you want it, if you want a gas control system, and so on. So there's pros and cons to each of those. So this is kind of a summary slide of all the equipment, and the icons representing that. I would like if you can go to the other tier tab where your Slido is, or put it in the chat. What stage would you like to learn more about? It was kind of high level. For example, I know a lot of people tend to be curious about the biogas utilization. So like, can I do electricity? Can I do RNG? Should I do RCNG? Because it kind of gives you hope and like gets you thinking about how you can use more renewable energy.
Yeah, there's a ton of options, and certainly we have time in the Q&A as well to be able to address a number of these things. So yeah, please add your questions and comments. We're looking forward to speaking to some of those in a few minutes.
Yep, and the Slido is still up, so we can toggle back to that. So we're now going to be moving into a discussion portion. So I don't have slides here. If you're able to find my face and Dave's face, like that box, there should be a way to click on it and enlarge our picture so that you can see our beautiful drawings in the back. Okay, so this part of the discussion is about implementation. Really, the main theme is what's the easiest way to start implementing organic waste to energy? So that's your question, Dave. You're on the line.
So the easiest way to get started is to collect good, high quality data for a baseline to understand what it is you're working with. The first thing in terms of baseline data is around your existing collection programs. Do you have just black bag waste collection? Is everything all mixed together? Have you got a blue box program? Do you collect kitchen waste in a green bin program? Does your green bin program solicit diapers and plastics, things like that? How about leaf and yard waste? And this is an important point on the leaf and yard waste. It is more useful for the leaf and yard waste to be separate from the banana peels and other food waste. And that's because wood is not digestible in an anaerobic digester. So sawdust and wood chips, sticks from yard waste, those things aren't digestible. So those process through the digester and end up coming back out the back end and being part of the digestate that goes to land. Even some municipalities will have a separate fat collection system. So bacon fat from your kitchen can be collected as part of a collection program. All these things tell you about your feedstock. What are the tonnages? Like how much do you have? What's the contamination levels? Like there's a lot of plastics, a lot of knives, forks, and spoons. What other things are in there? The other thing about your feedstock is to understand how it changes. A lot of pumpkins this time of year, for example, is it different in the spring, winter, and fall? For example, if we think about temperature, the average temperature in all of Canada for a whole year is only 7 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
But knowing that doesn't help you if you're trying to buy a heat pump or a furnace to heat your house when it's minus 40 out if you live in Portage la Prairie, Manitoba. And similarly, an average of plus 7 degrees Celsius, well, you may want your heat pump or air conditioner to work when it's plus 40 degrees as well. So knowing the highs and the lows is also really important. Okay. The second thing is like, what are your physical assets? Do you have a compost facility already that takes your green waste? Have you got a wastewater treatment plant that already has anaerobic digester in place? How about a landfill? Are sections of it covered and capped? Do you have any landfill gas collection? And then third critical piece is understanding your current cost basis. On a per ton basis, what does it cost? Because in the real world, we all have business cases that we have to present to people who get to review those sorts of things. So knowing your costs is really critical. And then the fourth key piece is public sentiment and political will in your community. With the various stakeholders involved, what is their appetite to pay something that's a little bit more expensive or something that has a much better greenhouse gas profile? Understanding if that's going to be received well or if there's going to be a lot of resistance. So understand your feedstock, understand what you have for assets, know your costs, then understand what the will is in your community to implement some changes. That's the first key thing to get started.
Yep. So to get started, you don't have to build anything. You don't have to put anything in yet. It's just understand what you even got, whether it's what kind of waste you got or what kind of assets you have that waste can go to. So our key types of waste in the municipality usually are our fats, oils, and greases, so your grease collection. We've got our kitchen waste, our green bin, as well as our leaf and yard. And so as Dave was mentioning, leaf and yard, if there's a lot of it, it probably shouldn't go to a digester because the wood does not break down in a digester, but it could go to compost, for example.
That's right.
Now, speaking of compost and existing assets, so I'm going to ask the same question multiple times here. So say you're a municipality and you've got a compost site. What can you do to start with organic waste to energy?
Correct. So if you've got a compost site, the easiest thing you can do to get started is to characterize that. You actually have a collection system. So collecting a sample or several samples over days, weeks, months, that can be as simple as putting material into a 5-gallon Home Depot pail and sending it to a lab to test, to count the number of knives and forks and spoons in there, the amount of plastics, as well as understanding how much energy can come from that, actually doing a small scale digestion test in the lab. The other thing you can do is, depending on if there's if there's an existing digester, even 200 or 300 kilometers from you, it's possible to do a small scale pilot test where you send 1 truckload or 10 truckloads as a demonstration to a commercial digester facility, and the staff there will be able to give you some feedback on the amount of contamination that they see over, say, 5 or 10 or 20 truckloads. And in that case, the amount of contamination, broken glass bits, as well as the amount of gas production. And they'll be able to give you some real insights into your material that way to get started if all you've got is a compost facility.
Yep. So if you've got a compost facility and your organics are already going there, you might ask, well, my organics are already going somewhere, so why should I? So the big difference really is that if your organic waste goes to an AD, you get the benefit of having energy. So I'm going to go like a lightning bolt here. It's red. Oh, I don't know if that looked like a lightning bolt.
Today, that's a lightning bolt.
So yeah, like you can take the time with your compost and studying your stream to see if it's worthwhile to go to AD and figure out how much energy there is, how complicated your waste is. Okay, so the next one is I'm a municipality and I got a biosolids digester already. What can I do to get started with organic waste to energy?
So if you've already got a wastewater treatment plant that has an anaerobic digester, you're processing biosolids, so you're producing biogas today. You're already a biogas producer. Presumably you're flaring that. So, and same thing, starting with data. How much gas am I producing and what is the quality of that gas? How much methane is actually in that? In that way, the easiest thing to implement at your scale or at some small and modest scales is the CHP. So the cogen, combined heat and power systems. And that's an engine that produces electricity to help, say, offset some of the aeration electricity costs for your wastewater treatment plant, or to feed some of that electricity back into the grid. And those systems also produce heat, waste heat, just the same as you get heat off of a car, internal combustion car engine. So combined heat and power is pretty easy to implement. Any of your larger municipal consultants will be able to help you with that. In Waterloo region where we are, there are CHP systems at both the Waterloo and Kitchener sewage plants. That's a pretty well-established technology.
Yep. And so I saw a question about co-digestion actually, and that's something we can talk about for biosolids. So when people talk about co-digestion, they really mean I want to mix a couple of feedstocks. So if you have a biosolids digester, your feedstock is currently just your biosolids, your like sewage, right? And so one way you can more easily introduce co-digestion is if you put in something that has low contamination to begin with, no packaging. So let's say your fats, oils, and greases from your grease trap. Things that are liquidy and no contamination are easiest to start with if you want to really maximize your biosolids asset. Because once you mix in those wastes, you can produce a lot more energy than just biosolids. So thank you for that question. Okay, so if I have a landfill, what can I do?
So in a landfill, CHP units of all sizes are available for landfill gas. A lot of interest in North America in the last 5 years, but in Waterloo, we've had landfill gas collection and cogen for more than 25 years. So Waterloo was very early on a leader in that, but definitely that's the thing where you have a landfill, are sections of it capped? Is there landfill gas capture? That's the first question. If we're not capturing landfill gas, then what's happening is the landfill is already an anaerobic digester, whether we like it or not. Much like in the swamps from the beginning, the banana peels from your kitchen go to landfill and they anaerobically degrade there. If we're not capturing that gas, it's just seeping out through the dirt into the air, and that's a pretty powerful greenhouse gas emission. So if you're able to capture it, that's terrific. Capturing it and flaring it is still a really, greatly improved option versus just letting that methane out by itself. But once you've captured it and flaring it, then you have an opportunity to upgrade it either to RNG, or if there's not as much, perhaps then just CHP to produce electricity and feed that back into the grid.
Yep, so it's not that simple to go to RNG. The really main contributor to your decision making on whether or not you can do RNG is in terms of volume. So if you don't produce enough biogas, it makes it really hard to justify the cost of implementing an RNG system. But luckily, our CHP can come in all sorts of sizes, which is also good for smaller communities. And speaking of smaller communities, we have a lot of questions about implementing AD or even biosolids. I think this one is about SSOs or food scraps. If we have a small community, is it worthwhile to do AD?
That's really tough. So sometimes the answer is generally no. And oftentimes it depends. If you are a small community, so I would say, picking some numbers off the top of my head here, for a major municipally owned asset, we're looking at 50,000 tons per year or more of food waste. So if you're a smaller community, 5,000, even 2,000 tons per year of SSO, very hard for the economics and the business case to work on having your own standalone digester. However, though, there is definitely opportunities in the marketplace for collaborating with private sector. So public-private partnerships would be an excellent opportunity there, where that material can go to a commercial or market digester, and they can solicit food waste from your local apple pie factory, for instance, and they can solicit other industrial inputs to it to make the overall business case fly, when your system by itself is unlikely to be enough for the business case to work.
Yep, so we're in Ontario, right? There's lots of farm scale digesters here where I'm not sure if food scraps go in there, but I do know that industrial food production, sometimes they'll send their organic waste to the surrounding farms into their digester. So I'm not sure if there's a possibility of working with your farmers to build an AD so that they can manage their waste and your waste together.
So commercial depackaging facilities exist. There's not a lot of them, and it's a newer industry, but a commercial depacker can then take that cleaned material that has the knives and forks and spoons removed from it and the plastics, and can then send that to a number of different digesters. And that way there's a resilience in the digester operation in terms of having one or two or three of them. If one is being cleaned out, there are several other digesters for that material to go to.
Yep, and also there's an interesting opportunity for small communities. If you have a biosolids AD, I'm not sure if you do, but you can test out co-digestion at your facility. If you have just a small amount of solid waste to put in, or like a small amount of grease to put in, that's less risky, I think, compared to having 50,000 tons that you have to deal with, and now you're trying to commingle it with your digester.
Exactly. So co-digestion, so mixing food waste at a sewage treatment plant, is relatively new in Canada. Now, there are more than 100 facilities that are doing this successfully in the United States today. That is at municipal sewage treatment plants that are able to co-digest other materials other than just sewage biosolids. So it is definitely possible, and it's done every day across North America.
Yep. So I think that's our implementation part of the discussion. If you can go back to our Zoom and click back into the presentation so that we're small again and our faces are like this teeny, that'd be great, because the GMF folks will be putting up a second part about the funding. Andrian, is that correct? Oh, and we have a QR code and number. So here's final call. Please get on the Slido. It will still be up as we do our Q&A. And I'll be, right after this presentation, I'm going to be looking at all of the poll results and the comments and the Q&A so that we can really understand where the interest is for organic waste to energy.
All right.
And so if you like this presentation, please stay along. We're still going to do our Q&A. Follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We produce YouTube videos about anaerobic digestion if you want to learn more.
Thank you, Trisha and David. That was very informative. I particularly appreciated learning more about the various technologies used for each step of the treatment process. So hi, everyone. My name is Pascal Thériault, and I'm an outreach advisor here with the Green Municipal Fund. I'm here today with my colleagues, Rémi Bertrand and Nathalie Lapointe, who are also part of the outreach team. So now that we've learned the basics of anaerobic digestion, the next questions that comes to mind is, how can I fund this type of project in my community? And this is where the Green Municipal Funds comes in through its Organic Waste to Energy program. So the Organic Waste to Energy program was launched in 2024 to support municipal projects that recover energy from organic waste. This can include biogas capture, anaerobic digestion, wastewater energy recovery, and also aerobic composting. The program provides funding for the early planning stage, right through the construction, helping municipalities turn organic residues into renewable energy, and also value-added products like digestate and fertilizers. Ultimately, the goal is very simple. It's to help municipalities reduce greenhouse gas emissions while creating local renewable energy sources. Next slide, please. Now, not all organic waste to energy projects are created equal. The funding is designed to stimulate innovation. So it's not designed to support compliance measures or basic waste management activities. Projects that involve burning waste, collecting, or minimally processing waste are not eligible under the AWI program. So my advice to you is very simple. You can just reach out to GMF, have a conversation with one of our advisors, and we'll be happy to help you confirm your project's eligibility and also explore how it could fit within our funding streams. Next slide, please. When it comes to who can apply, municipalities are definitely eligible applicants, but we also allow private sector applicants to either lead or partner with municipalities to produce energy from waste. So the elements you can see on the screens highlight some of the key factors that will be considered when assessing partnership eligibility. So please note that this list isn't exhaustive. We're currently refining our private partnership guidance. However, as a general rule, we always look for projects that are directly linked with the municipal and community priorities. And in addition, municipalities will also have to demonstrate their support for the initiatives, for example, through enabling laws, financial guarantees, or other relevant legislative or policy instruments. Next slide, please. So as you learned today, organic waste and residues are really valuable resources, and there's many ways you can valorize organic materials. To help you find the best model that fits your community, GMF offers 3 levels of support. First, a grant that can go up to $100,000 to help you assess which type of project could best fit your context and why it could make sense for your community. Second, a grant that can go up to $200,000 to go further and also carry out the technical, financial, and environmental feasibility studies that will be required to implement your project. And for both these streams, municipalities with fewer than 10,000 residents may qualify for a grant that can go up to 80% of the total eligible cost. And finally, at the capital stage, we offer a loan of up to $10 million for 15% of that amount that would be given as a grant to help bring your project to life. So funding amounts are based on total eligible costs, and you can find more details on each of those streams on GMF's website. My colleague just put the links of the programs page in the chat for you to consult. Next slide, please. So that was a very quick overview of what the Organic Waste to Energy program can support. If you'd like more information about the program, or if you already have a project in mind, please reach out to the outreach team, either by sending us an email or by booking a Teams meeting. Rémi will actually share a booking page link in the chat. We really look forward to hearing more about your ideas and projects. And as I like to say, we're always just a phone call away or an email away. At GMF, we have dedicated staff that can really help you through the whole funding process and really help you navigate all the requirements and guide you in preparing the strongest possible application. So that's it for me, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. Back to you, Andréane.
Hi, Trish and Dave. You can go ahead and find some questions in the chat that are interesting and yeah, start your discussion.
Okay, so please put questions in the chat. I'm going to be picking out some questions here. So we've got interesting question here. What do you do with the extra heat in the summer?
If you don't have a commercial use for that heat in the summer, in the heat of the summer, radiators and blowing that heat to the air, discharging that heat, and it's not able to be used excess heat when it's 30 degrees out for sure. That's the case. On the shoulder seasons, I think there's opportunities for co-locating CHP systems, for example, near a greenhouse where a lot of that heat would have value. It tends to be low-grade heat, so not particularly hot for, say, industrial steam, but excellent for space heating. So greenhouse heating, heating warehouses, opportunities for district energy opportunities as well, where a hot water system or water loops are able to move through industrial and commercial buildings as a shared heating resource. But yes, when it's 30 degrees outside in the summer, nobody particularly needs that heat for most applications. So it's radiators.
Yep. Okay, so we have another questions about the co-digestion. Asking about blending ratios.
Yes.
Kind of a complicated answer, but you can start.
Okay. Yeah, a little in depth for today's conversation for sure. Blending ratio. So I would say pretty much every ratio works in that there are lots of, again, more than 100 standalone food waste digesters. Well, 93, I think, in the United States, and a good number in Canada that don't put in any municipal biosolids. Those standalone food waste digesters, lots of those work. And then lots of digesters work with just biosolids, and being able to blend in between depends on how much effort you want to put into managing that feed recipe and that feed blend. The ability to put in, if you want to maximize the gas production, then it's mostly food waste. There's not much energy in sewage sludge. There's a lot of energy in bacon fat.
Yep. And what we always tell our operators and when we consult with people in terms of adding in new feedstocks, whether it's co-digestion, is that you just have to do it slowly and watch how it reacts. So it's not always necessarily about the ratio. It's also the speed at which you start putting it in.
That's right. The biology, the bugs that do the biodegradation, there are different ones that eat bacon fat, are different than the ones that eat sewage sludge, are different from the ones that eat off-spec Coca-Cola and banana peels. And so they do grow slowly, and being able to bring them in gently, right? That is definitely an aspect of it.
So this is also a very good question. It's about collection. So how does the humidity and I guess the controls around your collection, let's say in your receiving, how does that affect the volatile solids lost?
So we have a whole video on it. So solids lost through aging in the collection process. We call that slack here at Azura. So your feedstock, your organic materials are biodegrading all the time. From the moment an apple is picked off the tree, it is slowly breaking down, whether it's in a truck, in your refrigerator, on your kitchen counter. And so as an apple core in the green waste, it is still degrading as it's sitting there for sure. So under conditions of higher humidity and warmth, it is still naturally degrading. And so you're losing volatile solids all the time at that point. Farm systems can lose 30% of the gas value in 2 weeks easily like that. So
it's hot.
If it's hot, for sure.
Yeah. So if you think, so for example, currently I have mushrooms in my fridge, and I don't know if you've ever accidentally left your mushrooms for too long. They start shriveling and getting small. So that's what they mean when they say volatile solids lost. Like it generally, the mushroom itself is getting smaller. It's losing some of that mass, that energy, that thing that can turn into energy. And so the longer something sits around, the less energy you'll have once it gets to the digester.
Yeah, and it's hard to see that loss sometimes because as it dries, like an apple core that's drying can get shriveled up as a dry core, but it's actually also losing solids as well as biodegrading. So two things are happening at the same time. So it's hard to distinguish just doing that by eye.
Yeah. This is also slightly more technical.
Okay.
Maybe we might have to move it to our next session, but dry versus wet digestion in Canada. Maybe start with what do you mean dry and what do you mean wet?
So dry is not a real thing. The anaerobic digestion biological process is a damp process. The bacteria live in water. And so it can be a little skim of water that's on the outside of a pile of solid apples. That's what would typically be called dry digestion. It's not really dry. It's more like damp and different than, say, something that's more of a smoothie consistency. We call wet digestion smoothie consistency, and dry digestion would look like dirt. Okay. In terms of the Canadian context, both can work. I don't think there are any of the dry digestion facilities that I think are working that well at the moment in Canada. I believe in Canada, it's primarily wet digestion systems installed. The wet is useful for separating plastics and separating grit, so broken glass, rocks, sand. So we get a lot of value out of using the wet systems to help with the cleaning and purification of the digestible banana peels from the glass and other contamination.
And like I alluded to earlier, when we got to the digester part, we don't really believe in the best digester. It's about fitting your feedstock to your whole system. So actually, we always advocate for doing a lot of your characterization, making sure you know how many forks are in your feedstock, and then matching what kind of pre-processing, especially that contaminant removal step, how robust does that need to be so that you can handle all of those forks. And then the digester just kind of comes after.
That's right. So people would tend to use what would be called a dry digester, but really it's kind of wet like dirt. If there is, say, a lot of sticks or some wood waste in their green bin program, that way it is moving around as wood chips and sticks. But at the same time, it is sprayed with enough water that the bacteria are able to operate in there and to do their normal life processes, being bacteria and eating the food and giving off the biogas.
Yep. So water is key for life, including for the microbes. So just because it says dry doesn't mean like charcoal dry.
Yeah, not dry, still mostly wet.
Kind of moist. Okay, so I don't know. Please let me know, Andrienne, when we will move on. I'm just going to take one more question. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think one more question is great.
Okay, so what is the status of Énergir and their interest in the RNG market? I have heard secondhand that RNG can be purchased from the US at a significant scale, which makes smaller projects for mid-sized municipalities and ag producers more difficult to compete. Is there any other insights into avenues to sell RNG with a long-term 15 or more years commitment? Big question.
Big question for just a couple minutes left here. So we were at the RNG Forum conference in Quebec in the spring, and we did certainly hear from representatives from Énergir that regardless of what's happening in other places politically across North America, Énergir is doubling down on long-term commitments to purchasing RNG. So definitely they are strong and going ahead with that. Yes, on a competitive cost basis, Canada can be behind the curve. There were tremendous tax incentives in the US federally in recent years that caused for a build out in that industry. And we have not had similar incentives for the Canadian industry. So definitely, that is a fair point that we will need to look at how gas is being purchased. Do Canadian ratepayers have in their bidding process, does Energia or any other purchaser of RNG, do they have a bias in their scoring system in favor of domestic gas versus importing gas from large US projects? Yeah, those are definitely questions to be asked.
So this is a really good question, and it highlights how the local energy market influences your incentives to go into RNG and waste to energy. Again, so RNG requires a lot of waste for it to be worthwhile. If you don't produce enough waste, you can still implement organic waste to energy with CHP, and you don't even have to worry too much about the market and the politics of natural gas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. There are lots of ways to get started, and ultimately, organic waste energy. Everyone in the municipal sector deal with organic waste understands this is a long game, right? We're looking at to permit a new landfill. We're talking 10 years or more. So we're not just looking at what's going to happen in the next quarter or in the next year. We're looking at 5, 10, 20-year time horizons as we're planning out these projects. They can take quite a bit of time, even looking at having different levels of municipal government working together. If a town has a sewage treatment plant with an anaerobic digester, but waste collection, solid waste collection is happening at a county level, well, they're going to need some time to get together and to have conversations and to see if there is enough collective will to move these types of projects forward. Ultimately, it's a long game, but it's a game worth working on
for sustainability.
For sustainability, as long as I'm eating bananas for breakfast and banana peels got to go somewhere, we're going to have that kind of organic waste to deal with. So turning it into renewable electricity or renewable natural gas, I think is a great use for that material.
Okay, so Andrea, take it away.